Hey everyone, welcome back to the Doctor in Yellow channel. My name is Kiraj, and it's good to see you as always. And I know that you saw the title of this video, so I'm really just gonna jump right into it. And I hope that you can bear with me because I generally like to speak very extemporaneously. Like I try to make notes and have bullet points and do all that, but it just never works. I'll do it and I'll never look at it. So this is just me talking. But as I mentioned, I know you saw the title of this video and I wanted to talk about that. But before getting into that, I wanted to speak about my goal for the channel. So I started this channel as a means of connecting with other members of the tarot community. And it's very important to me that I'm able to form those connections because I've spoken about building a collective body of wisdom in the community that I think everybody can contribute to because everybody's personal spiritual practice and their relationship with tarot is unique to them. And so they can share the gems that they have found in their respective practices to contribute to that collective knowledge. But one of the things I also want to do is provide a place that I feel is safe on a psychological level and emotional and mental level for those who struggle with mental health. And as you've probably noted with some of my videos on this channel, as I've talked about, I'm comfortable diving into the shadow, talking about things like wellness and empowerment. And mental health is an aspect of that approach that I really want to make clear that I am offering as one of those gems to offer the community. I want those who perhaps have had a mental health struggle or currently are dealing with various mental health struggles to know that this is a place where they can feel comfortable and safe in receiving information about how to remain empowered no matter what you're going through and to maintain a positive self image and know also that you can share your personal experiences without judgment. So that's very, very important to me with this channel. And that's something that I want to be very intentional about being direct and clear about. So that's the first thing I wanted to share. And I felt like I can't really provide a safe place like that, especially as it relates to mental health, if I am unwilling to share my own journey with that. And specifically, I want to talk about how that journey has been aided by a very intentional spiritual practice involving tarot. And I want to share just a couple of things with you that I have found that are helpful to me, and hopefully you might find that they are helpful to you. So I know that this video isn't for everybody, but if you yourself have a mental health challenge or know someone who does, I definitely want you to know or you to let them know that this is a place where they can feel comfortable and they can be themselves without judgment. Now, my experience with BPD specifically, which stands for borderline personality disorder, goes way back. Ever since I was, I'd say, in my mid to late teens. And I always knew that there was something different going on with me emotionally, but I didn't have the knowledge and the vocabulary to kind of pinpoint it and know exactly what is going on. And this video isn't a deep dive into BPD specifically. So if you're interested in that, I can share some resources for you that I think are helpful in the comments, or not in the comments, but the description. And you can check that out if you're interested in learning more about it. But kind of in a nutshell, BPD is characterized by a lot of emotional volatility. So it involves some dysregulation with emotions and processing them. It also involves what we call splitting, which is sort of a black and white way of thinking where something is all good or all bad and kind of vacillating between those two extremes as it relates to interpersonal relationships specifically, which in turn can make those relationships somewhat unstable, It also can involve risk-taking behavior, some paranoia as well. It manifests differently with different individuals. And so if you ask different people with a diagnosis of BPD to describe what it's like for them, you'll probably get a different answer for each person you ask. So I can only offer what my perspective is on that. But as I was mentioning, this started way back in my like mid to late teens. As I said, I always knew something was a little bit different, but didn't really have the language for it, didn't really know how to explore it. And I knew that everything just felt intense emotionally all the time. I feel things in a very intense way, and they are feelings that seem somewhat disproportionate to the circumstances that would elicit those feelings. And I didn't really know why that was. And over time, I began to experience what I mentioned before, the splitting, the hot and cold, going from black to white in terms of the way that I'm thinking about a situation and totally disregarding the shades of gray that are so often a part of life. And didn't know what was happening, just thought that was how I was, despite the fact that it was causing so much emotional turmoil. And it led to me, unfortunately, causing pain to others as well, which is something that I absolutely hate. And when that happens, that's something that is a signal that there is some intervention or methods needed to correct what's going on. So I eventually, and this is like very, very recent, like within the last 2 to 3 years, received a clinical diagnosis of BPD. And when I tell you that that made me so happy. I know that that sounds like a weird response to have to a diagnosis, but I was really happy because I finally knew what was going on. I had done so much research on so many types of personality disorders like bipolar, histrionic. Nothing seemed to fit. I was looking up PTSD, CPTSD. There were always elements of various disorders that seemed like they kind of were what I was going through, but none really seemed to match in full. And it wasn't until my therapist introduced me to BPD and I read a whole write up about it, description about it. And if I didn't know any better, I would have thought that someone wrote that about me. That's how I felt when I read it. And it was such a relief because when you know what's going on, you then can begin taking the steps you need to address the issue. And in the case of someone who has BPD, dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, is the therapeutic method that is most effective in addressing what's going on. And that's something that I have grown tremendously as a result of engaging with. But for me, BPD, the way that I describe it to people, because some people have asked me what it feels like to have it. And again, this is just my perspective, so others, it might be different. But I have described BPD as being in the middle of a hurricane all the time, all the time. And you can't see anything because the rain is so heavy. And you can barely stand up. It's taking all of the energy you have just to stand up because the wind is so strong. It might blow you away if you don't concentrate. And the rain stings when it hits your skin. It's like it's a miserable experience just being in the eye of a hurricane all the time. And so people who are looking from the outside in, whose weather may be sunny and clear, are looking at you saying, what's the problem? Like, how come you can't do these very basic natural things, these easy things? Why is it taking so much effort for you just to do things that most people can do without much effort at all? And then from your perspective as someone in the middle of the hurricane, you're like, it's taking all of the energy in me to just stand up. Like, just standing is taking all the energy, let alone walking forward and getting anything done. So when it begins to affect your life to that extent, it's really necessary to seek out, in my opinion, that treatment that can be so, so beneficial. And on that note, I want to say that what I have to say about how tarot has helped me is not to say that tarot is a replacement for therapeutic methods or DBT if you have BPD, or any other form of therapeutic method if you have a mental health struggle. It's just something that is a complement to the techniques that I'm already learning and mastering so that I can remain grounded and whole in my day-to-day life. So this is not me saying, "Oh yeah, you don't have to, seek out any professionals or anything. Just, break out your deck and you'll be good." Like that's not what I'm saying at all. This is just meant to be a complement to treatment that is received. Again, if your wellness has been compromised by what some mental health struggles can do to day to day interactions, or just getting things done. So, that said, what I want to do is show you a couple of decks that I use as a means of grounding when I feel that hurricane turning into a category 2 or category 3. This is what I use to center myself, to ground, to reacquaint myself with my sense of equilibrium so that I can keep the train of my emotions on the tracks and go about life in the way I need to go about it. And what I have found is that there are certain things I look for in a deck that can be helpful. Um, Before even looking at the decks themselves, using tarot for me is grounding in the sense that it engages my senses. So when I have a deck in my hands, I can feel the cards. I can feel them as I'm shuffling them. I can hear them as I'm shuffling them. It keeps me in the moment with just an item in my hand that can itself be grounding. Sounds like a very simple thing, but being aware of where you are, what is engaging your senses, can do a lot to steady what may feel like an internal storm that's brewing at the moment. So it's like I have my deck in my hands, I'm shuffling them, I'm about to participate in a reading, and I can use that as a doorway to engage with my emotions in a way that feels healthier than what they would be otherwise. But in terms of the decks themselves, the first one I want to show you is the Ocean Tarot. See if I can get that in camera right there. This is the Oceanum Arcanae by Taylor Bryn Holtquist Todd, who I believe just goes by Taylor Bryn. And she has, I want to say, like 7 decks. She's very, very talented. Super talented deck creator. And I have the ocean one, but she also has a mammal based one that's like earth themed. She has one with reptiles that's fire themed, and a few others as well, like a bird one and a dog one. It's a lot of animal animals being centered in the decks, which I think is lovely. And she offers a theme to surround the type of animal that's in the deck, if that makes sense. So the Ocean Tarot, as the name suggests, features ocean animals. And this is the back of the deck. So you can see very intricate design there, a lot of very skilled pen work. And these are a gilded deck on the side. I'm just going to go through and show you a few cards from this deck. The reason why I like this so much is because I notice that if I'm using a deck that centers and features a lot of people, what I have a tendency to do is interpret people's faces or the position of their bodies or their expressions and impose a certain narrative or dialogue or thought onto what I'm seeing as if I'm talking to a person. And when I am in the throes of what feels like a hurricane, It can sometimes exacerbate a sense of emotional volatility if you are imposing negative thoughts, which are born of negative emotions, onto people that you're seeing in the artwork in a deck. At least that's how it is for me. If you're like that too, let me know. But it can sometimes make things worse if I'm seeing the Emperor and I'm imagining him saying, you really need to get your shit together. What are you doing? Or if I'm seeing Temperance and it feels like they're wagging their finger at me saying, hey, you really need to get it together. You really need to focus on maintaining balance. Or it can be, not super helpful to see the magician and imagine the magician saying, hey, you have all the tools that you need to get this job done. Why are you not using your tools? Basically, it can sometimes not be super helpful to see people. Because then I'm imagining it's easier for me to imagine that I'm having a conversation with a person. And when there are emotions that feel stormy, that conversation never feels like it's an encouraging one, at least to me. So in my case, it can help to have an animal theme deck. This is such a cool tower. The waves crashing up against it. It can help to have an animal themed deck where, at least in my case, I don't feel like I'm imposing those kinds of emotions and thoughts and sentiments onto non-humans. And it's easier to just reflect on emotions themselves, understand what's going on, and feel like you're not in a loop where you're making certain negative emotions feel worse. Hopefully that makes sense. But this deck in particular, I think Taylor just did an incredible job with the creativity and the animals that she selected for the various decks. And you can see in that one there was a mermaid. There are a couple where there are humans, I believe, but the vast majority are sea creatures. I guess a mermaid is a sea creature. There's the Hierophant. Such a cute Hierophant. And speaking of cuteness, very cute Page of Wands as well. I think it's called a Dumbo octopus. But I really, really enjoy this deck. And the reason why I initially got it is because I wanted a deck that helped me connect with my Pisces sun a little bit more easily. And so if I had Pisces type emotion related questions, I'd break out this deck, and it was always helpful for that. But what I found over time is that it's a great grounder for me as well. Whimsical as it is still very grounding. In this Queen of Cups, you can see more humanoid depiction there. Again, it's just a couple of cards in the deck that are that way. But really, really recommend checking out Taylor's work. If you are someone who is interested in animal decks, I don't have many, but when I do get one, it's one that I notice consistently helps me connect emotionally. Other people get animal decks because they just feel more connected in their spiritual practice in general by seeing non-human depictions. Some people don't like seeing people in their decks at all, and that's perfectly fine. But I can't recommend this deck enough. It's also a very nice feeling, very sturdy deck. I'll show just a couple more here before I show you the second one that I have. And on the Ace of Cups. Perfect for talking about emotions, right? Now, the second deck I want to show you is one that many of you may have seen before, but this is the Craft Felt Tarot by Gianna Lucci. I first became aware of this deck because I follow Christiana Gaudet, who is an extremely talented tarot reader. She has a channel, so I'll link to her channel in my description for this video as well. And in her community on her platform, she refers to her platform as like a little village, and everyone is a villager there, and the village gets together and we talk about various tarot techniques, sometimes decks, and Christiana does a ton of readings as well. Like I said, she's very, very talented. But Gianna Lucci, who is the creator of this deck, is or was, I'm pretty sure she still is, I'm not sure, but she was a member of that village with Christiana Gaudet. And so the Craft Felt Tarot was a product of the village itself. So everybody was super excited over there to see the Craft Felt Tarot because it's like, oh, one of the villagers created a deck. Like, that's so cool. And that's how I initially discovered this. But what is super interesting about this deck, I'll start showing you a few cards here, is that it is made from felt, not the deck itself, but the images in the deck were made using craft felt and arranged in these scenes that mirror the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. And after the images were arranged, they were photographed and then placed on the cards. You can see that there's kind of like a glossy cardstock to it. And the images that Gianna chose for this deck, I think, are just incredibly clever. And it's a lot of fun when you use it because it does have quite a noticeable 3D effect that you'll see when you take a look at the felt images. And kind of tying this back to the topic of emotional regulation, for me, it's just so gentle. It's so gentle and such a sweet deck. And at the same time, it still manages to be clear and direct. So it almost kind of feels like an encouraging parent or an encouraging older sibling who wants to see you do well. So they're going to tell you the truth and they're going to tell you like it is, but they're going to do it in a loving way. And that's what this deck feels like for me. And if I'm thinking about the process or my line of thought when I first got this deck, I think I might have initially intended to get it for inner child work. But the more I looked at the images, I was like, I just want this for myself. I just want it because I like it as an adult. This is one of my favorite King of Swords. It's just so clever. And yeah, when I first got it, I realized how great it was at offering a grounding presence for me. Cute little cat with the sun. I have our Ten of Cups. And you can see the colors are so vibrant. All of the cards have a different colored border. So it feels like there's just such a celebration of diversity in this deck, and that is reflected even in the colors that are used for it. This, to me, is the most genius Seven of Wands I've ever seen. Genius. Genius, genius. Like a witch brewing in a cauldron with angry townspeople outside. Oh my gosh, genius. Adore this Eight of Wands as well. And this next card is one that is often cited as one of the more brilliant ones in the deck, which is the Wheel of Fortune, which is a gumball machine with the seasons all around it. And so you have to turn the little lever in the gumball machine, you don't know what you're gonna get. It's just brilliant. It's a brilliant choice for the Wheel of Fortune. But this deck is another that I can take out. It calms the hurricane down to a drizzle, and if I'm lucky, the sun even comes out. You know, that's always the goal. And I'll show you a few more here. Just such a cool deck. Feels great in the hands as well. But yeah, so those are two decks that I use to ground myself and that I use as a complement to DBT skills and other techniques that I have learned over the years in my personal therapy sessions. But kind of going back to my original intent with this channel, as I mentioned, with connecting with the community, but also offering a safe place for those who have mental health struggles. This is for anybody in any struggle. I'm just using BPD as an example because that's my personal experience. But no matter what you're dealing with, whether it's anxiety or depression or any of a range of mental health concerns that affect you on a day-to-day basis and something that you want to deal with in a healthy way and also have a space where you can be free and open to talk about those things. No matter what it is, I want you to know that this is a space where you can do that. And again, to reiterate, tarot is not a replacement for a professional if that's what you need. So do keep that in mind, but this is just meant to be a complement to some of the practices that you already have under your belt to help ground you. Because I feel that there can sometimes be dynamics when using tarot that can exacerbate anxiety. So if you really are uncertain about the future or you're looking to get an answer to something, and you're really zealous in trying to find that answer because it's something you're concerned about and you're worried, and you're drawing cards, trying to get answers and get clarity, that can almost sometimes have the opposite effect in making you even more anxious or more depressed or introduce a little bit more emotional volatility, like in my case. And so being intentional about the type of deck that you use, what your goals are when you pull the deck out. Like, I'm using this to ground myself. I just want to see my emotions. And that's something that I actually will do a lot of times. When I'm in a hurricane, it can be difficult to make sense of it and know where those emotions are coming from and what the shapes of them are. And so I will lay out a spread that's like, just show me my emotions so I can see them and interpret that spread as a reflection of my emotions as a grounding practice. So my recommendation would be not always to run after certain answers to address uncertainty if you're in the throes of emotional volatility or depression or whatever it may be, but look at it as a means of grounding yourself, understanding what's going on internally a little bit better so that you can just kind of breathe a little bit afterwards and feel a little bit more centered. So that's really all I had for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to my personal story, a little bit of it. It's definitely not my intent to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I really just want everybody to feel welcome with me on this platform and in the tarot community as a whole. So thank you again for your time, and I will talk to you soon.